This is an amazing setting, by the way. Round of applause for Ashton, like this guy. I love morning energy. I massively respect morning energy. We're going to kick off by introducing Mo. And I probably wouldn't do Mo justice if I introduced him. So I'm going to ask something that I often ask people. I ask them to give us their 2-minute life story. Then I'll explain after why a 2-minute life story matters. But Mo, you're dialing in from Amsterdam, I believe.
Yeah, somewhere around Amsterdam. I have no idea where that is.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you within 2 minutes to tell us about your life.
I've spent my entire life attempting to build a background like Stephen Bartlett's podcast. So, hey, did you see? I now finally did it by sitting in front of a window. And I've just wasted 30 seconds of my 2 minutes. That's good because I think my life can be summarized in 2 lives. One as a tech executive, all the way until what I would consider one of the top tech positions in the world, really, Chief Business Officer of Google X, a life that everyone wishes for, that is not exactly what people think it is. And then a second life that started in 2014 when I started to write about happiness when my wonderful son left the world, and ended up being an author and a speaker and a sometimes thinker that people listen to the thoughts of, and in an attempt to make our world happier at a time where I think is going to be challenging, whether geopolitically or economically or climate or AI and so on. I still stand strong by my mission, and the mission is 1 billion happy.
Wow. 1 billion happy. And I want to get into this because it's Friday and I think we could all take some good energy and talk about happiness. But before we do, I want to speak about this big word that's looming around, artificial intelligence. You wrote a book, Scary Smart, in 2019, and that for me was very eye-opening. And I say eye-opening very deliberately. But as we've progressed to today, many of the things you spoke about, arguably warned about, are starting to manifest. I suppose to start today, could you share your perspective on why artificial intelligence matters and why the people in this room should pay attention?
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest event in human history. Hands down, the biggest disruption of human civilization, in both a good way and a bad way. So it's a singularity that stands to lead us into a utopia where humanity, as we know it, will not see hunger or see disease or see wars in the way that we have built throughout civilization. Even we would not need to see work as we've done before. So we could end up in a life that is truly pro-humanity, pro-life in every possible way. But also we could, along the path of getting there, stumble upon challenges that I sometimes refer to as challenges of handover, as our, how do I call it, as our primitive intelligence hands over to superior intelligence. My tendency is to believe that the old systems will resist the new, and we may end up in places where things are challenging.
What do you say to the skeptics? Because, you know, it seems to be such a polarized topic. I would argue the people that understand have been involved in developing artificial intelligence for a long time. You guys appear to be on the most existential, but then I suppose it's been trivialized in many respects because we're talking about using ChatGPT to write poems about cats in the style of Eminem, you know? So what would you say to the skeptics that say, you know, you're being hyperbolic or you're exaggerating about artificial intelligence?
I fully understand their position. I mean, the reality is that anyone who tells you that they know what is about to happen is either lying or arrogant. I don't know what's about to happen. I know that we're heading in on a trajectory that, if matching the previous technology adoption and acceleration curves, would bring us to a place where where science fiction becomes reality. We've seen that before. Anything that you've seen in Star Trek or iRobot or whatever, self-driving cars and so on, a lot of the tech that we've imagined has become a reality over the progression of the technology acceleration curve. And so, what most people don't understand is when you see technology from the inside of the lab, it's very different than what you see on the outside. When people were first exposed to Netscape in 1997, if I remember correctly, Netscape wasn't the internet. Netscape was just a window that showed all of us, the rest of us mortals, what was actually happening in the internet for the previous 15 years. And similarly, ChatGPT in 2023 is not the core tech of AI that we've been developing since the turn of the century. It's just the browser that suddenly it gives exposure to everyone of what is possible. And if you ask me, in comparison to what we who have worked internally on AI are predicting, ChatGPT is still reasonably dumb. It's not really that kind of super intelligence or general intelligence that most of us are saying is the singularity point, is the point where we can no longer predict how the events will unfold. And so, I understand the position of anyone who's skeptical, similarly to anyone who is skeptical that we would end up with COVID, right? If you haven't seen a pandemic in your lifetime, you don't predict, or you don't accept the predictions that there was a pandemic in your, that a pandemic is going to happen in your lifetime. And interestingly, when you really think about it, it didn't really matter what warning signs were given to us. We had SARS and we had swine flu, and we had scientists telling us all through that something might happen, but you had to wait until patient zero, and even then you don't react. You have to wait until we're all locked down, and then you see the size of the challenge. Okay, and even today, as we look back at COVID, there are still skeptics, right? And there are still skeptics, rightly so. I think the world should always be skeptical. But wouldn't it have been better for all of us if we had just taken the warning and were cautious? And this is what I call for. I'm not calling for a panic attack across the world. I'm just saying, if I told you that an alien civilization with superior intelligence is heading in the direction of planet Earth, and might actually take over everything, would your response be when? Is that in 10 years, 20 years, 70 years? Does it even make any difference if it's in 10 or 20 or 70? And would your response be proof to me that they are going to cause us harm, or would your normal human smart response be, oh, that's an event that we should prepare for. We should assume all the possible scenarios and try to put ourselves in a place where it works in favor of humanity, whichever way it plays out.
It seems that we all suffer from cognitive dissonance. We see the signals, the red flags, the warning signs, but I suppose we continue to trivialize these incredibly powerful technologies. What can the individual do? Because the way you describe the problem with big, significant innovations is it feels so removed from individuals. It feels like we don't have agency over what's about to happen. What can we do?
That's not true at all. I mean, we've always had agency. And believe it or not, even if you take a mega size event like COVID, you always had agency over your own life and what you're planning to do with it. And you always had agency on the impact impact of that little life on the rest of the world, right? And I think, I wrote a book. I write a lot more than I publish. I wrote a book back in 2018, if I remember correctly, that was called Understanding Fate. And understanding fate was not a sort of a fatalist approach to the world, to say that the world is just happening, unfolding, and we're living in it. It was a mathematical approach to show you that destiny is an aggregation of several free wills. There is the free will of the universe itself, and the machine of of living, and of the mechanics of the universe. There is the free will of everything else around you, from a tiny little germ all the way to your boss, or the president or the prime minister of your country. But there is your free will, and if you're wearing pink today in the audience, you've made that choice to wear pink, right? You had other options, and you made that choice. If you made a choice to have coffee or not, that's a choice. And even though we trivialize those choices, they have an impact on your life, and accordingly the life of everything else around you. And destiny, at the end of the day, is the sum of all three free wills, right? And I think the reality of the matter is, when it comes to AI, we are much more empowered than we think we are. We are empowered on one side as individuals to jump on the bandwagon and learn the skills and be the best in the world at it. When Lotus 123 came out, the concept of a spreadsheet was so new to all of us, and some of us continued with their pencils and general ledgers, and yes, I did live at the time when Lotus 123 came out, so yes, apologies for all of you young, spoiled people. But but the truth is, some of us jumped and learned how to develop macros within it, and understood everything about it, and they got an advantage. And I think for the next 5 to 10 years, the clearest advantage is that those who will learn AI inside out will outperform and hopefully do a better job at whatever it is that they do than those who don't. So your number one responsibility for yourself and your family and your loved ones is to learn the tools. And I always get asked, so what tools should I learn, Mo? And I say, why are you asking me? Go and ask Bard or ChatGPT and say, I'm in the finance sector, give me a list of the top 10 AI tools that I should be competent at, right? So this is one side. But the other side, which most people don't understand, is that in the intelligence of every AI out there in the world is fully informed by two things in parallel. One is a tiny piece of code. I think, don't quote me on the exact accuracy, but it's approximately correct. ChatGPT 4 is, the core code is 4,300 lines, right? It's not a very complex piece of tech at all. I mean, it's incredibly clever and algorithmically sound, but it's not like the biggest code we ever wrote. The reason why ChatGPT is where it is, or where Bard is where it is, or where, why DALL-E can produce incredible images, is because of the size of the data set that they're exposed to. And the data set simply is the average, the summation of all knowledge and all ethics that are human-based, right? So when you really think about the responsibility that we have as individuals in terms of teaching those AIs, and we are heading in a direction where each and every one of us will have a personalized AI. Interestingly, we already do, because in a way, your social media engine is highly personalized to recommend to your personality, right? But more and more, if you ask the question in India to an AI, you may get a different answer than if you asked it in the UK, just like is the case with Google today. So as we interact with those machines, our reinforcement learning approach to them is going to show them what it's like to be more intelligent, and at the same time, it's going to show them what it's like to be more ethical. And I think this is really the goal, because none of us has ever made a decision based on our intelligence. We make decisions based on our ethics and values as informed by our intelligence. And you can imagine that for ChatGPT or for an AI, a large language model, to recommend an answer to you, if the answer is, is not informed by a sense of respect that doesn't discriminate or doesn't, exclude anyone, then the answer itself might actually sound and read very different than if it didn't have that value. And believe it or not, it's one of the values that we're attempting to teach engines such as ChatGPT and others through reinforcement learning. The challenge, of course, is we're teaching them in California, right? And so, the set of ethics that we send them are not necessarily global in their approach. And I think the trick would be, how does each and every one of us engage so that your perception of what an AI ethical answer should be is taken into account.
I think when I hear you describe or present the case for we have more control over our outcomes, I'm encouraged, because we spoke about this before, but I think every magical thing we see in the world is a consequence of human ingenuity, and you have to have belief that collectively we can address the unknown unknowns that maybe artificial intelligence creates. We have a few minutes, so I do want to segue into something, or leave on it's Friday, by the way. I'm going to say it's Friday, so I want to lift the room a little away from not necessarily the big questions, but get your take. You talk about your second life being one of making the pursuit of helping 1 billion people be happy. This room is filled with people that are building in Web3, and Web3, crypto, more broadly, has had a really tough time for the last year. It's been difficult, so undoubtedly I'm sure many in the room have faced stressors, loss. Talk to us, or leave us with some guiding principles about happiness. How do we deal with the inevitable stressors that being in industries at the forefront like Web3 entail?
I mean, you're talking about stress and happiness, and these are two topics that I try to address repeatedly. So, my approach to stress is finally coming out next spring in Unstressable, and my work on happiness was in That Little Voice in Your Head and Solve for Happy. We can take them one by one. Stress, if you compare stress to how objects are stressed in physics, stress is not just the result of the force applied to you, it's the result of the force applied to you divided by your skills and abilities and resources to deal with it, right? Similarly, in physics, you divide the force by the square area of the cross-section of the object that is stressed. And so, stress is not just the result of the external environment, it's the result of how you deal with the external environment. And in many ways, those downturns and challenges and so on are just the furnace that we have to go through so that we show our real elements. And interestingly, if you look at those as as a trigger for your stress, in a way, you're bound to be the one on the losing end. Not because of the events, but because others didn't react the same way, and so they capitalized on the opportunity. And yes, I will have to say that the crypto casino last year and many years has actually disappointed, if you think about it, and that maybe Web 3.0 is not going to be just crypto, and it's going to have a lot of AI in it. I think the truth, however, is that if you're as old as I am, this is not the first time. Right? It happened many, many times with the internet, the dot-com bubble, and with the 2008 derivatives market collapse. And, it's funny when that happened last time at Google, I was known to be taking the average age of Google up as an employee when I joined. Because, if you talk about how many of us were really sort of salt and pepper, not too many. actually. So when 2008 happened, it was between me and maybe Eric Schmidt, our CEO, and Alan Eustace and Jonathan Rosenberg, product and some engineering and product heads and so on. These were the ones that were getting the average age up. And as the whole company panicked, we were celebrating. We were saying, oh my God, this is an amazing opportunity to help our clients. We have technology that can make things different. We have the ability to thrive, if you think about it, because every challenge comes with an opportunity. And this actually is my definition of happiness. My definition of happiness is that calm and peaceful contentment that you have within you, regardless of what life throws at you, because you're okay with life as it is. And that is normally triggered not by the challenging events, but it's triggered by a comparison that happens in your head between the event and your expectation of how the event should be, right? And I don't know if anyone is in business and is not expecting challenges. If you're a startup entrepreneur and you're not expecting life to test you, then I think your expectation is wrong. This is truly what it's all about. And in times like those, as I say, if you realize that the event is not, oh my God, life's annoying me, but the event is life is throwing a few interesting new opportunities my way. And if your expectation is, and yes, by the way, to succeed, it's going to be difficult, your response is going to be, okay, that hurt, but let me see what I can do to make things better going forward, right? And the most successful entrepreneurs I know, and the most successful enterprises I have started, were when I was in the mindset of, yeah, shit happens. Sorry for my English. And my chief job is shit cleaner, right? This is really it. As a founder, your job is to hold your team together, focus on what really matters, and just put your head down and say, okay, what can I do to make tomorrow a little better, right? If you do that, not only will you be less stressed, not only will you be happier, but you'll become more successful, right? And I have to say, anyone who is old enough to have seen those collapses, anyone who's old enough to have seen those disruptions, will tell you, yes, after rain there is sunshine. Okay, and this is truly a question of how often have you seen this, and can you at least start to believe it so that you react in that way, so that you tell yourself there will be challenging times. The outcome of them is that I'll change direction and learn, and then there will be amazing times, and with my learning and skills, I will do amazing, right? And when it comes to AI, just to close the full circle, because I really don't want people to ever think that I'm advocating a doomsday scenario on AI. I'm trying to say about AI is that we are about to hit a patch of unpredictability. The world as we know it is not going to be the same. And you can put your head down, like most speakers on the topic, and say, existential risk, robots are going to walk the streets and kill us. I don't think that's the case at all. I think the reality is we're going to get through some challenges around jobs and job definitions and skills. And, intelligence, the most valuable thing on the planet, is becoming commoditized, right? But as we go through that, as we go through how bad people may use that, how politics will change, about how society and the fabric of human connection will change, as we go through that, the ones that take it with calm and peace, that work on themselves to change their little world, are going to venture out on the other end winners. But at the same time, believe it or not, even if they don't, when the rain stops, there will be sunshine. Eventually, I call it the fourth inevitable. Eventually, intelligence will realize there's no point annoying humans. We're too insignificant for that. Okay? And I think that the truth is, as the world will inevitably change, it will go through a down cycle, then an up cycle, and will end up in a good place.
Mo, thank you so much. I could selfishly, and I'm sure on behalf of the room, listen to you speak all day, but I don't want the guilt of you missing your flight. So, no, thank you.
Yes, thanks for that.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.